to categorize me as
I think that
not a reduction.
Reduce your arguments down to the way that you argue with people, right? Which is basically reducing everything down to the simplest set, right? Which is your debate tactic, and I get it.
It's not a tactic. That's just logic.
That's that's how you debate.
That's logic, though.
So your logical debate tactic.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, just logical. It's just logic, right?
In this video, we join Andrew Wilson as he debates someone called Misfit Patriot. The crux of Andrew Wilson's argument is that his opponent, who claims that the woke right is a thing, isn't really a conservative. With that, let's watch Andrew Wilson once again dominate an inferior opponent.
There's a duck, right? And the duck is the woke left. The woke right is walking like the duck. It's talking like the duck. It's quacking like the fucking duck. And we're going, hey, that looks like a fucking duck.
Yeah,
right?
but
that's what we're doing.
I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't. Again, I've reduced this already so you can see it a million times. They're not actually quacking like the duck. What they're doing is they're rejecting the ideology of equity and inclusion, both of these tenets.
Woke right is just trans. They're just like, they just look a little bit like the woke left.
They don't even look like them. You just have a failure of pinpointing the distinction in ideologies. And that's why like no leftist, no woke leftist is going to consider these groups to be woke. They only jump on board with that because they feel like it's a humiliation ritual for them that's brought on by guys like you. They don't really think, though, for a second that these guys are about intersectional equity. Of course not. It's ridiculous.
No, so they're just acting. What I get your argument. Your argument is there's no woke left in a literal sense because the woke. The woke right.
Yeah.
There's no woke right in a literal sense because if you reduce it down to equity,
to ideology.
Well, if you said equity, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying the ideology reduces to equity.
Yeah. No, I think what you're doing is, and you're making a good argument because left, right? Left is equity, right? And right is different. So you have a problem with using the word woke
because it's not a good descriptor. Well, reactionary would be a good descriptor.
Woke comes from waking up, right? Waking up. That's why it's woke. Waking up to the fact that there is some power. There is some power over us that we need to overthrow, and we need to take back the power because now there's this power structure. You're focusing on the left in woke left, not the woke in woke left.
Yeah, right? But listen, this started from black leadership who was talking about an oppressor class who was oppressing them. And what equity needed to look like for them. Equity that's the main tenet is equity. But the dissident right, ideologically reduced, rejects categorically the idea of equity. They even reject categorically the idea of egalitarianism.
But that's the left argument, right? So the left argument is the equity argument, right? Woke just means you are waking up, quote, woke, wake, right? Waking up to an oppressor-oppressed class, right?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. The etymology of the word comes from the black leadership saying that equity is the necessary. They woke up to the fact they needed equity. Equity was the key point here for all of these woke leftists. If you talk to any, and I've done hundreds of debates with left-wingers across the country, right? I know that you would love to categorize me and say, Andrew just debates with whores on the internet, but the most prominent left-wingers in the world I've tangled with.
Yeah, the word woke has evolved. I feel like it came into being, I don't know, 2-3 years before the whole BLM thing in 2020. And yeah, I think it was initially saying that, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think it was initially saying that there's a structure in place or there's a leadership in place that wants to oppress you. Therefore, changes should be made to ensure equality of outcomes or equity. I still don't really get what this guy's saying about the woke right. I mean, I kind of feel like a lot of conservatives I would put into the category of being awake, I guess. I don't want to say woke, but being awake to what's really going on in the country and seeing how we're lied to and manipulated by media, our politicians. But I think the term woke now, people on the right, including myself, just use woke as a catch-all for any loony left-wing stuff pretty much. I mean, it's a pretty broad catch-all now. But arguing, what does woke mean? It doesn't really matter. I mean, it was a made-up term anyway, and now I just pretty much use it for anything that I see on the left that's stupid. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
On these topics, time and time again, the reduction in the argument for ideology from the right comes down to this. We reject social inclusivity and equity. We reject it. From the left, it comes down and is reduced to we demand it. We demand inclusivity and equity. That's the distinction between the two groups. You would find yourself more on what you consider to be the woke right side than you would the woke left side, in fact. Don't you think equity and inclusion is fucking stupid? Don't you think that necessarily is fucking stupid?
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah, so does every dissident right-winger who exists. The idea, though, that they are identitarians because they're reactionaries, right? And they say things like, oh, we don't want unfettered illegal immigration in here. Does that mean that they're racist? No, of course not. Does that mean that they're evil? No, of course not.
No, that doesn't
but they're definitely identitarians.
That does not mean that they're evil. What they are that does not mean that they're racist. They just are fucking racist, right? That's the thing. Anybody with a set of eyes can see that this group, right? And I love how you just went through a whole entire reduction argument and then said, well, you can reduce me down to arguing with hookers. I reduce your arguments down
No. I said it. I think you would love to categorize me as that, not a reduction.
I reduce your arguments down to the way that you argue with people, right? Which is basically reducing everything down to the simplest set, right? Which is your debate tactic, and I get it.
It's not a tactic. That's just logic.
That's how you debate.
That's logic, though.
So your logical debate tactic.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, just logical. It's just logic, right?
You're logical.
Well, so when you take logic, you're taking a set of propositions, and because of the law of excluded middle, they're either true or false. So it's either true that the woke right is the same as the woke left, or it's not true. I'm fundamentally saying it's untrue, and then I take the second proposition.
Well, nobody's ever made that.
They have the same tenets. That's the second argument. I reject that as untrue and give my evidence for it. So I have now taken these logical propositions, which must be either true or false, and shown how both are false.
You haven't. That's the thing, right? And I was just about to say what you have done is you have pointed out the distinction between left and right. And I am telling you, right, that there is the woke just because the black leadership started the woke movement. Right, and you have to understand, we gave the title of woke to them, right? We're like they
gave themselves that title.
I say as a pejorative. We sort of
they gave themselves that title though.
We use it as an insult. Would you argue that point? The right uses woke.
Well, yeah, far later actually, but yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the right gave this title as a sort of a categorization against separating the moderate left, liberals, and the progressives, the radical progressives.
No, it's a tenet of all leftists.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Sure, but what I'm saying is every normal person thinks that there is a difference between, let's say, I don't know, like Christian cinema and Ilhan Omar, right? One's woke and the other one's not exactly woke, right? Like, and I get it that every leftist is woke to a degree. However, when you give this group a name, right, you don't have to reduce it to a literal sense. You're basically going, these are the categories of this group. Woke left is a radical group of progressives that focus on identity, politics, and race, right? What we're saying is on the right, it's a radical group of extremists that focus on identity and race, right? The difference being the hyperfixation on race is there. The hyperfixation on victim mentality is there. The hyperfixation on cancel culture, exclusion, and coercion is there. Those tenets are just present in the group.
This guy said that Andrew's debate style is reducing things down to something simple using logic. And Andrew corrected him and said, no, that just is logic. And I agree with that. I mean, they're both using logic right now, attempting to come to an agreement on the definition of the term woke. That's not necessarily a debate tactic. It's just what's necessary in a debate to ensure everyone agrees on the baseline or the premise of the topic so they can proceed with the debate, make sure they're on the same page. And the right, part of the foundation of the right or conservatives is built on logic as opposed to emotion. And I don't understand his whole thing saying just using your eyes, everyone on the right is racist. I really don't know what behaviors of conservatives can be called racist. I really don't. I think conservatives, like Andrew said, are just reactionary to nonsense that comes from the left. And when they fixate on race all the time, we say that's counterproductive. When they try to reshape biology or claim things that are true that just aren't, the right is just reacting to that. No one's fixated on it, but the left is fixated on identity politics, victim mentality, equity, all the things they're talking about. So, yeah, I don't think there's a woke right unless he's talking about like neo-Nazis or something. I guess they have an obsession with race, but I mean, I guess that's considered extreme right, but I've never run into one of those people in my life. So I just don't really think you can attribute that to the right wing. That's a particular group of people that most conservatives I know would distance themselves from. See, on the left, they're extreme groups. The left embraces them, and that's what gets the Democrats into trouble. Anyway, let's wrap up the video.
Group. And because those things are present, no matter how they're defined literally, they are present, then we are just calling it the same thing with a different name. We're calling woke left these tenets which they have, woke right these tenets which they have. Now you're making the argument, but everybody has those tenets, and that's when I come back in with it's kind of like really like something that you don't have to explain. You just see it, right? It's like there is a clear difference between the Groyper movement and the MAGA movement. I think that's very prevalent.
I think that they would agree, but that would not. But here's why here's why you're having trouble here with the distinction.
I'm not.
Woke right and woke left. I would say that the woke right is a group which hyper focuses on using the English language to make political points in the United States, and that the woke left is a group which hyper focuses on the English language to make political points in the United States. See, they're exactly the same. Do you see? No, they're exactly the same. They both use the English language in order to make political points in the United States. So they're exactly the same thing, right?
I mean, everything Andrew said was true, but I still don't really get this other guy's point. But we want to hear from you. What do you guys think? Is there a woke right? Is this guy making any sense to you? Maybe you can help me out. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.